Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us. My name is Lauren Abbas, and I'm the Leader Speak Series Coordinator. Our guest speaker tonight is John Oechsle, CEO of the software company Swiftpage. His presentation will cover how a small Denver, Colorado company acquired two large companies to become a large global corporation overnight. Please join me in welcoming John Oechsle to the stage.
Thank you. How you guys doing tonight? Thank you so much for ordering up really great weather for me. I really appreciate that. I thought we were going to have like 300-400 people here. I think the weather held back, but we got a really good crowd here, so thanks. You guys ready for a story? Okay. As Lauren said, the story tonight is a fascinating story. It's a story about this really small company in Denver, little tiny 15-person company that woke up one day and said, how the heck are we going to grow? And we decided to go out and do some acquisitions. And when we did that, we said, oh my God, what did we just do? So you're going to hear that story. It's a long story. So strap yourselves in, get some refreshments, because we're going to be here about 3.5 hours. Is that okay? Okay. You guys, it's okay to laugh at the jokes. It's good. Don't be shy. Just let it all out. So anyway, you can always judge a story, how good it is, by how much you learn. So tonight we're going to learn a few things, hopefully. All right, so let's take a look at it. We're going to learn 3 of the lessons that we learned on our journey: strategy, leadership, and courage. If you don't have a good strategy, don't even start. All right, it's a waste of time. Leadership team, that is critical, and I'll tell you, the leadership and the team that you start with is not the same team that you're going to finish with. And that's something that you really need to keep in mind. And then this is a long journey, and it's a tough journey. So if you don't have the courage and the tenacity to see it through, don't even start. Okay? We're going to learn that. You're also going to learn a little bit about yourself tonight. You didn't know that was going to happen, right? We're going to look deep inside, and we're going to figure out what it is that you're all made of. Sound like a plan? All right, but the most importantly, we're going to have some fun. We'll start with some fun. Give me a throwable here. Little dude, thanks for coming, man. Can you catch? All right, here we go. Ready? Yeah, give him a hand. Good job, guys. All right, so before we jump in, let's do a little exercise. So everybody get ready. If you have a pencil and paper, that's good. If not, just get your mind clear. What I want you to do is I want you to think of the 3 most important things to you in your life. And that could be anything, right? That could be money. It could be position. It could be family. It could be health. Whatever it is. But think of 3. Okay, I'll give you a few seconds there. Think about it in mind. You got those phones. You can put it in your little notes application there. Write it down. Got it? Everybody good? Tell you what, we'll get back to that in a little bit. So don't forget them. All right? Let's start with a little bit of background. First and foremost, I was a statesman. Oh, man, come on, guys. I was a statesman. All right, and you're saying, why the heck were you a statesman? Well, I came out to play some football. I was quarterback on the football team in the early 80s. Back then, we ran this thing called a wishbone. Anybody know what a wishbone is? Yeah, the wishbone is the quarterback gets hit every play. I did not like that. That's not a good thing. So then I decided to do the whole full experience, so I was part of Sigma Phi Sigma. I was part of that fraternity. Anybody know that fraternity? Does it still exist? Yeah? Still here? Obviously, there's a lot of Sigma Phi Sigma people in the audience, but anyway, so I was part of that. That's a pretty weird-looking bunch of guys right there. But back then, I looked like that. And you're probably saying to yourself, John, how come you didn't, button up your shirt? Because when you come from New Jersey, you do not learn how to button up your shirt until you're about 26 or 27 years old. Unfortunately, I still have friends that are in their 50s that have not figured out how to button up their shirts yet. So anyway, so that's what I look like now, guys. I look like that, right? And you're saying, Johnny, brother, what the heck happened? Well, let's go into it. What happened? First, 35 years have passed. Can you believe it? It's been 35 years since I've been on the campus. A few things have changed here. You got some new buildings, and this building is new, etc. 4 kids and 3 grandkids. How many people have kids? If you have kids, they take 10 years off your life. I got 4. I'm 90 right now. I'm looking pretty good, right? Now you're looking, hey, John, you're looking pretty good for 90, right? But more importantly, I spent the last 30 years fixing and growing companies. And so what that means is that I've basically worked for Fortune 50 companies like Kelloggs and Johnson & Johnson. I've done some startups. I've taken $100 million companies to over $1 billion. And you know, I was that kind of guy that had this really unique skill set of understanding business and understanding technology. And back in the 80s, there was a gap the size of the Grand Canyon. You had people over here that understood business, and you had people over here that understood technology, and they could not communicate. And I said, man, if I could like fill that gap, I bet you I could get to the C-suite one day. And so that's what I went after to do. And then I was talking to some folks at lunch today, too. I also raised my hand for every single assignment that was out there. I don't care if it was a good assignment, it was a bad assignment, or whatever. They say, hey, we got to go do something in Latin America. That's me. I'm going to go. Well, you're the tech guy. Doesn't matter. I'll go do it. And that gave me this really unique ability to be able to move my career very, very quickly. So I've worked for Kellogg's, and I worked for J&J. I did this thing which I thought was a startup. There's a holding company called Land America Financial. We formed it. It has 0 revenue. We went from 0 revenue to $1.8 billion in about 17 months because we bought 3 companies. Right? And that's when I really started understanding that if you want to grow and you want to grow fast, you have to acquire. All right, so we bought 3 title insurance companies, brought it together, took it public, went public at $19 a share, and I exited it when it was $65 a share. So it was a nice run. All right, so we kind of got there. That got me into the acquisitions. Since then, I've done over 50 acquisitions in my career, over 35 of them with one company, and that was a company called IHS. That was a company that was out in Denver, Colorado. I was actually working for Johnson & Johnson. I just relocated back in from San Jose dos Campos, Brazil, got the family situated, back in the country. I was looking really good, back in Jersey. You know, I was a Jersey boy. I was back in the home state. And I get a phone call from a guy named Jerry Stead. And Jerry's a great guy. If you don't know him, look him up, because he is somebody that you need to know. Here's a guy that every company he touches just goes wildly to gold. He took Ingram Micro from $8 billion to $32 billion. He did the Schneider Square deal. He did all kinds of stuff. He was an NCR, AT&T. So he calls me on the phone. He goes, John, I got this wild gig in Colorado. And I said, okay. And he said, it's a small company. I said, define small. He said, $200 million. I said, no, that's a pretty good size. He said, we're going to take that company. It's a 44-year-old privately held company. We're going to take that company. We're going to clean it up, take it public, and then we're going to hypergrow it to $2 billion. Are you in? And before I could even think, I said the word yes. I said, oh, hey, great, hang up the phone. I'm thinking, oh, dear God, I got to go home and tell Linda, my wife, I got to go home and tell her that we're now moving to Denver, Colorado. So I'm driving home, like, oh, my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Get home, and I said, hey, babe, how you doing? She goes, good. And she said, you know, how was your day? I said, well, you never guess who I talked to today. She said, who? I said, Jerry Stead. She goes, oh, my God, when are we moving? Right, so we got in there. So anyway, we got to Denver, Colorado, and I told her this is a 3-year gig. Right, we're going to come in, clean this thing up, take it public, boom, done. Right, so we got in there. It was a mess. It was technically bankrupt. It was, you know, all over the world. It was crazy. So it took us about 2.5 years to clean it up. Took it public in 2005. This was 2003 that we landed in Colorado. 2005, we took it public at $16 a share. Did 37 acquisitions, and I left in 2010. We were $1.8 billion, and the stock was trading at $111 a share. Really fun ride. Kind of crazy. So at points of time, we were doing 2 acquisitions a month. It was kind of nuts, but a lot of fun. So this is kind of where the story begins. Right? So now we're going to kind of get in. You're like, John, are you ever going to get to the story? Trust me, it's coming. I'm telling you. So this is where it begins. So why I was at IHS, I was also starting to help out the technology community in Colorado. I was doing angel investing. Anybody know what angel investing is? That's individual investors that have some money and they determine that they want to invest in companies. So it's not like an institutional or private equity or venture capital. It's kind of an individual investor. So I was investing in companies, And I was also offering advisory services to those companies, et cetera. I limited it to 4 because I was also working full-time and doing all these acquisitions, et cetera. So anyway, with any good story, we got to lay out the characters. So let's start looking at the characters. Starting all the way back in 1987, there's this little software company that was formed called ACT. Has anybody heard of ACT at all? Great, that's a stealth marketing that's working. Super, okay. Anyway, so that was really the beginning of CRM. Anybody know what CRM is? Customer Relationship Management? Yeah? Okay, good. So back in the 80s, we had these things called Rolodexes. So most of you people haven't even been born in the 80s, but these little things on your desk that had these cards, and you would flip them, and I could call somebody, you flip it, and I had to write a note on it, etc. So what ACT did was automate the Rolodex. That's how it all started. Wildly successful. Then they added all kinds of functionality to it, and it really kind of took off. Now, and then the person who started it sold it. Then in 1998, he built another software package called Sales Logics, and it was a little bit more. Think of it as ACT's big brother. So it had a little bit more functionality, etc. So he did that. All right. So that's the time frame of 1998. Now, along comes Swiftpage in 2001. So that Swiftpage was founded in 2001 by a gentleman by the name of Bob Ogden, really good friend of mine. I've known Bob for 20 some odd years. And so it started as a little email marketing company. Anybody hear of like Constant Contact, MailChimp, any of those kind of things? Yeah? Okay. So that's what Swiftpage was doing. And it got started. I was an early investor in the company. About 2003, 2004, I invested in it. I was starting to advise it, and it was really struggling to kind of get revenue and get customers, etc. Little side story, 2003, Sage, which is a very large European software company, acquires both ACT and Sales Logics. So now Sage owns them. So now I'm sitting there, 2006, advising Swiftpage, and I said, you know what? I think you should go to Sage, and I think you should OEM or embed your technology into their technology because they got a whole lot of small businesses. And Swiftpage was going after small business. They have a whole lot of small businesses as their customers. And so that's the strategy that we went after. We said, okay, let's go ahead and do that. We did that. We put it in ACT. We put it in Sales Logics. We put it in Sage CRM. We put it in Sage 50, which was an accounting package. And it was wildly successful. And the company went from $100,000 in revenue to $4.5 million. And everybody's happy. It was like, great. I said, okay, now go and replicate it. Just go find another Sage. Okay, 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010. We're like, guys, you got to do something because the revenue had not grown. Like, boom, 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 boom. 2010, Sage tries to buy Swiftpage. So they come and they say, hey, you know what, we're going to buy you. And we're like, great. So I helped Bob form a formal board at Swiftpage. And we all got there. We tried to navigate through this acquisition. And it fell through. Lots of deals fall through. Of the 50 I did, I probably started 100 to 125 of them. Not every deal goes through. So it's like, everybody was bummed out. And so anyway, so I'm on the board. So then I tell this funny story that in January of 2012, I was at a board meeting, and I had to go to the restroom. So I left and I went to the restroom. And I came back in, and they said, John, we voted you in as CEO. I said, guys, I went to the restroom. That's not fair. Right? There has to be some kind of a rule that if you go to the restroom, you cannot have a vote type of thing. Well, anyway, so I stepped in. They said, we need to grow this company. It's been at $4.5 million for 6 years. How do we do that? And I said, well, I was working, helping another company pretty heavily with their strategy. I said, let me work on my way out of that, and I'll come on board. So July of 2012, I came on board. Now, this is where the story gets interesting, guys, because we really took a step back. Now, we're going to go into lesson number 1. We're going to learn that if you don't have a clear strategy, do not start. Right? So they said, John, what's your strategy? And I said, okay, let's take a half a step back. I'm going to come down here. You guys mind if I come down here? Okay? I can walk better that way. Oh, good thing I didn't fall. That would have been horrible. Okay, so Swiftpage was focusing on the small businesses, SMBs, small, medium-sized business market. And we said, okay, let's look at that market. And the market is quite unique. Now, and it's unique in a way that it needs everything that enterprise businesses need, but it doesn't have the time, the money, or the expertise to implement it. All right, so then how do you look at it? So we said, okay, we believe that the SMB market needs 4 digital pillars in order to grow. We call them presence, traffic, conversion, retention, and optimization tools. Presence, you guys know what that is, right? It's websites, Facebook pages, anything that you have presence online. Once you get that, you need to have people come to it. Right? So that's where traffic comes in. So you need SEO, you need SEM, Google AdWords, whatever, anything to do to get people come here. When they come to your presence, that's a lead, right? Then you have that lead, and you need to convert that lead to a customer, retain that customer, grow that customer. Optimization tools are things like accounting software, HR software, et cetera. Those are just optimization tools that help optimize the company itself. All right, so we said, okay, that's the 4 digital pillars that we need. I said, oh, and everybody's like, great, that's great. Okay, how does that pertain to Swiftpage? Okay, we said we're going to own conversion and retention for the SMB. That's what we're going to do. That's our long-term strategy. Very high level, very crisp, very clear. We will own conversion and retention for the SMB. And then once we own that, then we're going to create what's called the connected workplace across the other 3 pillars and make sure that it connects information back and forth. Everybody said, I love it. How are we going to do it? We're like, okay, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to go acquire some companies. Right? Because as a little email marketing company, we could not own conversion retention. We could have tried to build all that stuff. It would have taken us years. Right? I would have come up here on my 99th birthday and said, we finally finished it, and that kind of stuff. So you have to move quick. The only way you can move quick is you say, I'm going to acquire. And you say, okay, well, what are you going to acquire? Well, what is the center of the universe for conversion retention? CRM, customer relationship management. Why? Because it houses the most critical information that a company needs in order to grow. It houses every single interaction you have with a lead, a prospect, or a customer. It's all in your CRM. So that's the center of the universe. We said, great, let's go out and take a look at the marketplace, what's out there, et cetera. So we looked at, obviously, I talked to Benioff at Salesforce. I said, are you for sale? He said, John, you write me a check for about $49 billion, you're in. I said, I have a little bit less than that, so we couldn't get Salesforce. Right? So you start looking, there's little players out there. There's Insightly, there's Nimble, there's tons of players out there. None of them had customers. Right? They have great software. They had maybe a lot of freemium users. People were saying, I got 10 million users. Really? How many are paying? 1,000. Okay, I'm not interested in you. So we kind of looked through that, and little by little, we kind of said, oh my God, the answer is right in front of our face. It's ACT. We're already embedded into it, et cetera. Now, here's another funny story. Bob Ogden was over in the Sage headquarters in August of 2012. So this is like 1 month after I stepped in. And Sage made an announcement that they were going to divest 7 companies. 2 of the companies were ACT and SalesLogix. So Bob has a little bit of a challenge with time zones. So he doesn't realize that it's like, he's in England and I'm in Denver. So it's like the middle of the night and the phone rings. And I was really stupid enough to answer the phone, and I'm not sure, but it was right next to my bed. And I said, okay, I answered the phone. It's like, Bob. I said, oh, yeah. He goes, John, whatever. And he said, did you just hear with that? I said, no, Bob, I didn't hear that. I was sleeping. But okay, don't get too upset. Now, you have to realize that ACT and SalesLogix was about 70% of Swiftpage revenue at that point in time. So that's a little scary that somebody's going to divest it. You don't know who's going to own it, what's going to happen to it, et cetera. 70% of our revenue could go away. And we're like, so a little bit of defensive move. I said, Bob, what I want you to do, brother, is I want you to walk right back in the office to Gavin May, who was the head of Corp Dev at Sage. And I said, and you're going to tell me you're going to buy ACT. And he said, John, how are we going to do that? I said, Bob, I'm in my jammies, man. I cannot tell you how I'm going to do that. I need to be in regular clothes in order to think. In my jammies, I'm just telling you to go do that. And so we had a little bit of a interesting debate on the phone, but I finally convinced him to walk in there, and he said, we're going to buy ACT. And they say, hey, yeah, that's funny. Yeah, come back when you have some money, etc. So anyway, but we at least got our hat in the ring, right? So I won't tell you how we did it, because that's another hour to 2 hour story. But maybe someday I'll come back and tell you how we actually financially engineered the acquisition, not only of ACT, but Sales Logics. So you think about a $4.5 million company, bought about $75 million worth of revenue, and still had control and ownership of our company. So that's a fascinating story unto itself. But we'll set that one aside for a second. So anyway, so now we've got ACT and Sales Logics. Now what? 3 critical pieces. If you learn anything from tonight, you need to take away these 3 critical pieces. If you do not have alignment, focus, and a poop load of cash on your balance sheet, you will not be successful in acquiring and integrating companies. Right, so this is critical. How you guys doing? You still with me? How about a couple throwables here? We're going to need to keep some people. Who wants a T-shirt? One more? Oh, this is a beanie cap way back there. There you go. Oh, see that quarterback row? Right, that was good. A little bit of follow through. I look like Tom Brady with less hair. Okay, so alignment, focus, and cash. You need to have that. That is critical. So instantaneously, we went from 15 people in a little tiny office in Denver to 350 Swifties in 6 different locations around the world. Instantaneously. When I say instantaneously, it was literally overnight, because when you're done with the conference call, when all the lawyers are soaking all your money and saying, you know, everything's a go, congratulations, you own the company, boom, everybody hangs up, and you're like, okay, now what? Right, you've got all these people. So critical is alignment. And to start alignment, you have to start with the purpose and the vision, and you know, some people call it values, we call it living the exclamation. If you do not have those, it's very difficult to rally people around and get moving. So purpose, what is a purpose? Sometimes people call it mission, etc. I call it a purpose. Why? Because it is why you get up every single morning and come to work. Why does Swiftpage exist? And it needs to be something really simple. You walk into companies and they have this massive thing on the wall. It says, you know, here's my mission and blah, 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 blah. You're like, what did that just say? I have no idea what that says. Ours is simple. We fuel small business growth. End of story. That's pretty easy to remember, right? We fuel small business growth. Now, if you're an employee, if you're a Swiftie, if you don't wake up every morning and say, I want to help fuel small business growth, you're not in the right place. It's okay. We'll help you be successful elsewhere. But if you can't get around that, then that's not where you should be. So that's the purpose. That's why you wake up every morning. Now, what is your vision? Your vision is what you want to be when you grow up. It's a pretty simple thing. So purpose is why you get up every day. Vision, what you want to be when you grow up. Okay, what do you want to be when you grow up? The world will know us as the #1 small business solution. Again, simple, real easy for people to understand. Now, to go from your purpose to your vision is a journey. And through that journey, you need a compass. And the values, or what we call living the exclamation, is the compass that guides you on the journey. Right? And again, you need to lay these things out, because when you're trying to bring 350 people from 6 locations together, you need to have some kind of a foundation. And this is the foundation. Now, I'm not going to read through all the living the exclamation, but I'll pick out a couple. Number 1 is work is fun with a purpose. Right? We were doing something that was going to force us to probably work 16, 17 hours a day. If you're not having fun, it's not going to be a good thing, right? So you have to create an environment that you can do work, be purposeful, but have fun, right? And so that's really what we try and do. And to this day, we now have only 3 locations around the world, but if you walk into any Swiftpage office, it looks exactly the same. So same color schema, same layout. Everything is the same. Why? Because we created an environment that is work is fun with a purpose, and no matter where you go in the Swiftpage nation, it's all the same. The other one is do the right thing. That's an easy one, right? That's a common sense one. If it feels wrong, don't do it. You know it. Everybody knows it. You're doing something, you're like, it just doesn't really feel right. Okay, stop. It's okay. Do the right thing. Don't do the wrong thing. There is no right way to do a wrong thing, right? And if you do that, and you just think it that way, now, the right thing may be it's okay to ask for help. And you have to create an environment where people don't feel scared to say, hey, I need some help. Too often, companies fail because they create an environment where people say, I really need to ask for help, but if I ask for help, I'm going to look weak. And if I look weak, I'm going to get fired. Right? And then you're in trouble. Everything just breaks down from there. You have to have an environment where people say, I need help. You know what? I ask for help every single day. I am not the smartest guy in the room. There are a lot more smarter people than me around me. And I say, guys, I need some help. If you see that, you're like, oh, okay, it's okay to ask for help. So anyway, those are some of the things we do. Now, when you do this, here is a lesson that everybody should learn. This is a tough one. Not everybody's going to make it. Okay, you're bringing 350 people together. Not everybody's going to make it. There are 3 groups of people. Number 1, there's a group of people that are so bought in day one, they're like, yeah, man, I'm in. Purpose, vision, I'm ready to go. Yeah. You don't need to focus on that group. You say, thank you, come with me, that's good. Then on the other end of the spectrum, there are people that are never going to get it. Never going to get it. Do not waste 1 ounce of energy on that group. Because there's another group that's probably the largest group that's sitting on the fence. And they're either going to come with you or they're going to go the other way. You need to focus all your attention on that group and say, I want to get as many of those people over this way than that way. Right? So the folks that are never going to make it, don't waste any time. Get them out of the organization fast. Be respectful, be helpful, get them out of the organization fast. Focus on that center area. A little bit of a rough lesson, but you have to do it. And you have to remember, and this is critical, 1 team, 1 journey. You have to embed that kind of mentality into your organization. 1 team, 1 journey. Because you have 2 different companies, ACT, Sales Logic, a third, Swiftpage, and they're like, oh, those ACT people, they don't know what they're doing. Oh, those Sales Logic, those Swiftpage people are crazy. 1 team, 1 journey. And you just can't say that kind of stuff. You have to live it. And when we talk about leadership and those kind of things, you're going to see that you have to have the courage to act very, very quickly. No pun intended, by the way, with the act. But you have to act critically and quickly as a leader, because you will lose credibility fast if people know that there's something wrong and you don't act on it. And we'll talk a lot more about that in the leadership area. So 1 team, 1 journey, that's critical. Now, continuing alignment. So now we have this great companies that we just acquired. We got people around or whatever, and they're like, okay, now what do we want to do? Okay. We take the strategy down to the next level. Again, it has to be crisp, clear, easy to understand. Transform, convert, retain, and grow. That's our strategy. Transform, convert, retain, and grow. Why? We bought this package. It's called ACT. It was kind of a declining asset. It was a desktop software. So there was an enormous amount of transformation that we had to do, and I'll talk a lot about that here in a second. Once we transformed it, then we had to convert all the customers over to a new platform, etc. Then you had to retain the customers, then you had to grow. Convert, retain, and grow. Now, how many people work for a company here? Okay. How many people can say what the strategy of the company is? If you're thinking about your company, can you articulate in 1 sentence what the strategy of a company is? If you can, there's a t-shirt. It's tough, right? How many times have you seen the CEO get up and talk about the strategy to a group of people, right? Yeah. Oh, good. Oh, there we go. Good catch. There you go. Very rarely, if you go to any company, listen, I work for Kelloggs. I work for J&J, a $59 billion company. I could not tell you what the strategy of that company was. And I could not align myself with what was going on with the strategy. I just knew I had a budget. I better hit that budget or I was in big trouble. Right? So you have to, you go to any Swiftie right now around the world and say, what's our strategy? They'll say transform, convert, retain, and grow. Very simple. Right? Once they all understand that, then it's real easy for them to say, okay, am I working on something? We make sure that every Swiftie has 3 objectives during the year. No more than 3. Because if you have 4, 5, 6, you ever How many people do performance reviews and you say, here's your 15 objectives for the year? And you're like, gosh, I'm never going to get to those, right? If you have 3, you're going to focus on them. And oh, by the way, if those 3 can't get all the way linked back to transform, convert, retain, and grow, then you better stop working on it because it ain't doing us any good, right? And so that's the kind of stuff that you need to do from an alignment standpoint. Everybody with me? Yeah? Not putting you to sleep yet? Good deal. Focus, alignment. Now, just one last thing on alignment. So obviously you align all the Swifties. There's other constituencies that you have to align. You have to align your investors. You have to align your board, and you have to align your customers and partners. Right? So all of that has to be aligned. And I would tell you that a lot of my time in the early years, 2013 and 14, was making sure that the investors were aligned. Because they were like, yeah, John, we're bought into this. This is good, but I'm not seeing the numbers come out. It's like, it'll come, guys. So there's a lot of work that you need to do. So focus. You need to focus on that. There are 3 distinct eras that we go through, or have gone through, or will go through at Swiftpage. Transform, the transformation era, the conversion era, and the growth era. Transformation era is really what we talked about. We had these assets. They were distressed assets. We had one asset, SalesLogix, which didn't fit into the strategy because it was an enterprise software. How do we transform all of this stuff? I'll just real quickly talk about SalesLogix. We very quickly realized it didn't fit. We set it over there. I ran it as a standalone, cleaned it up, divested it off to a company called Infor in September of 2014. Now, here's the fun part about that story. We got 1.5 times what we paid for both companies when we divested it off there. So as everybody was happy, the shareholders were happy or whatever. Now, another little tidbit on that put a whole poop load of cash on the balance sheet. Now, here's the problem. When you have a bunch of cash, you start making really stupid decisions. And we'll talk about the stupid decisions that we made through the era. But anyway, so now we're back to transformation. We had this desktop software as license and maintenance. We needed to get it to the cloud. We needed to transform everything over to a subscription basis. We had to wipe out the entire sales force. 75% of the sales force we had to turn over. Why? Because they were used to selling licenses and maintenance software, and we needed people that were selling SaaS-based software, subscription-based software. We had to completely transition that out, completely change all the processes, completely change all the back office systems. Oh, by the way, we had partners of ours out in the marketplace that only knew how to sell licenses and services. On top of that, we had to completely transform that. So enormous amount of work done, and that was from March of 2013 till May of 2015. Now, here's where it got really ugly, guys, because that's a crap load of real ugly work, an enormous amount of investment. And oh, by the way, your revenue is not growing. In fact, our revenue is dipping. We were trying to stop the bleeding because when we acquired these companies, the revenue was dipping. Market share was dipping. Units were dipping. Retention rates were down. And you're just pumping millions of dollars into this. So your EBITDA, how many accounting people do we have here? Yeah, you should raise your hand. Yeah. EBITDA is how you measure profit, is going negative, 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 negative. And then all of a sudden you have, the investors are saying, John, brother, this is not what we signed up for. And I was like, guys, which part of it's going to get ugly before it gets better, don't you understand? And they said, yeah, but this is like kind of throw up from your baby ugly, man. This is really bad. And I was like, yeah, it will come back. I said, it will come through. So this is where this is why when we talk about leadership and team, this is why you may have to change people around. So the same team and leaders that you have that went through this era may not be the same people that go through the others. We'll get into more of that. So we get through all of that. Now the problem is right towards the end of that, end of 14, beginning of 15, a crap load of cash hit our balance sheet, right? Because we divested off SalesLogix. Then we started making really, really silly decisions. Then we started losing focus. And once you lose focus, you lose alignment. Jump back to that for a second. And when you lose alignment and focus, it's not a pretty story. So remember that as we go through. So we had all this work. So then finally, May of 2015, we're ready to enter into what we call the conversion era. So we launched into this whole new portfolio of products into the market. We started in North America. We went into the international market a year later, and we started really picking off people that had support contracts. We just kind of converted them over. Those were the easy ones, and so we kind of went through all of that, we're kind of coming to the end of the conversion era. Right? So this year, we're kind of go through that conversion era, and we're going to go into the growth era. So then all of a sudden, like right around, I don't know, second or third quarter of 2016, everybody was happy again. Why? Because we went through the conversion era, and we kind of, money was coming in, revenue was growing, et cetera. And I was like, guys, remember like about 2 or 3 quarters ago when you were like making my life miserable? And they're like, oh, no, Johnny, we love you, brother. You did great, right? So, but anyway, so we have that. So the growth era is all about how do we hyper-grow this company. And the way you're going to hyper-grow the company is we're going to do geographic expansion, and we're going to do acquisitions. So now we're set to do that. So that's kind of the eras of the focus going through that. Now, we had a crap load of issues with the technology. If you're a software company and you're selling software into the industry, you better get the software right, because if the customers don't like the software, you're not going to grow. So we started this journey with acquisition. We had this little SaaS-based email marketing product, and we had a desktop CRM product called ACT, closed desktop system. Right? You're not going to grow with those two things. So through the whole transformation era, what we did is we combined those together, we moved it up, and we created what we call the ACT Open Cloud-Enabled Platform. Right? It's open, it's surrounded by REST-based APIs, and that enabled us to enter into the conversion era. Now, through the conversion era, what we've been doing is adding pieces on top of that platform. Right? So we started with ACT Connect. That was the first piece that we added on there. ACT Connect now takes ACT and connects it to over 1,000 other small business applications. 3 clicks, and you're connected. Right? We use people like Zapier. We use Cloud Elements. We use some other software to enable to do that. Then we said, okay, now we got to get into things like ACT Insight, which is now that I've got all this information in there, how do I pull it back out? Right? How do I gain insight of all the information that we got? We did that. We put in ACT Marketing, which was the email marketing. We put some mobile on top of that. So anyway, you can see that we just built all these what we call purpose-built apps around the platform, and that now enables us to enter into the growth era because we have this entire new platform with also, and oh, by the way, I can bolt on whatever I want to bolt onto that platform. So as I acquire something new, it's on there. So the technology has been a wild, wild ride. And I'll stop there because that, again, could be another 2 or 3 hour discussion. So what happens when you don't have alignment and focus? We'll get back to that. If you don't have alignment and focus, you burn cash. Right? So I talked about at the end of 2014, beginning of 2015, we had cash. People were making silly decisions. I was like, oh, I'm going to go hire 85 programmers and go build this other product over here. And you're like, boom, boom, boom. And it was really, really bad. So this is the dark part of the story. Right? So we got to the point of probably third quarter of 2015, we were burning $1 million a month. $1 million a month. You can't sustain that unless you're growing the top line 40, 50%. And we weren't growing the top line 40 or 50%. So something had to change. Right? So we had to sit back and say, okay, listen. We've come through the transformation era. We've divested off sales logics. We have to restructure the company. So we basically took about 30 or 40% of the company out of employment. Now that's tough, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, well, why did you do that?" Well, when you're going through transformation, you need an enormous amount of resources, and so we had to have those resources on. When you came out of transformation, we didn't need that many resources. But then we had a group of people that said, "But we could put those resources to use," and so we had to get to the point of saying, "Stop. We have to get realigned and refocused." Right? And that's my accountability. Right? I let it go on 1 or 2 quarters too long. Right? And so that if you talk to anybody at Swiftpage, they'll know that John got up in 15 and said, "Guys, I need your help." Right? It's okay to ask for help. I asked for help. I let this go 1 or 2 quarters too long. This is going to get ugly. We got to do this. And we did. All right, so we got through it. Okay, so how do you know it's working? So if it's all gone through. So what I tell all the Swifties, and we do all kinds of meetings or whatever, if you're looking at a chart and it's a revenue chart, if it's low on the left and high on the right, that's good, right? Say it with me. Low on the left, high on the right, good, right? So that's the kind of stuff that you need to take a look. Oh, by the way, when you're talking about subscription unit growth, low on the left, high on the right, good, right? If you're talking about churn, that's high on the left, low on the right, right? So a little bit, you shake yourself up. But anyway, so low on the left, high on the right, if that's going on, you know it's working, okay? All right. Remember those three things? You guys got them back in your head? All right, now what I want you to do is take the 3, take it down to 2. What are the 2 most important things to you in your life? Got it? Oh, man, I see a yawn. Holy smokes, I even gave you a T-shirt and you're still yawning. Just kidding. Anyway, everybody got it? Down to 2? All right, sit tight. We'll get back to that as well. All right, lesson 2, leadership and team, critical. So let's start by what is the definition of a leader? Right? Pretty easy, right? Somebody or something that leads others, powerful person, controls them. Okay, we got that. So if that's a leader, what is leadership? All right, somebody that leads, somebody in a position of leader of a group, the power, ability to lead other people. Okay, I got that. Here's a good question for you. Are leaders born or are they created? We have any philosophy majors here? Any philosophy professors? If you take a philosophy class, I'm going to tell you guys something really good. How many students we got in here? All right. If you want to sabotage the class and you just go up and say, hey, professor, I've got a question. Can leaders be born or can they be created? It's good for at least a week of conversation. So you can sabotage the whole class. So what do you think? Can they be born? This is something that everybody is at. This is my personal opinion. You cannot create a leader. Right? You can't take somebody that has 0 ability to lead and create them and make a leader. Somewhere in their makeup, they have some kind of characteristics that you can pull out and make them a leader, but not everybody is born to be a leader. Right? There are just people that just can't lead, and no matter how many times you try, it's just not going to work. So as you're looking at your teams, you need to be able to recognize that. And we do this all the time as companies. We do this, and we're like, oh, this person is great. They're doing really great. We're going to take that person. We're going to throw them into a leadership job. 3 months later, you're walking them out the door, and you're like, my God, what happened to Billy? He was great, and then all of a sudden he got horrible. You have nobody to blame but yourself. Right? You took somebody that could not lead and you tried to force them into a leadership position. And no matter how many training classes or whatever, they're just not going to do that. So you have to make sure that you keep that in mind as you go forward. So let's talk about leadership. It is a journey. There are 3 dimensions of a leader that you need to keep in mind. Number 1, you have to be able to tell a story. And that story has to be simple. You have to be able, and that's called vision. If you can create vision and it's simple and people can understand it, they will come along with you. If you can't, and there are some really, really super smart people that when you say, okay, what's the vision or whatever, and they say something, you're like, man, I know that guy's mouth was moving, and I know stuff was coming out. I have no idea what he said. Probably not going to be a good leader. So you have to make sure that you keep that in mind. To be a good leader, tell a story, keep it simple, make sure everybody from the top of the company all the way down to the bottom of the company can understand what you're doing. You also have to demonstrate that you've been there and done that. That's called credibility. You have to have credibility. There's many, many ways of getting credibility. One way of getting credibility is to say, hey, listen, look at my 5 companies that I did this before. I've done this before. I know what we're going through. I know it doesn't feel right. It's going to come through. People are like, okay, I get it, that kind of stuff. The other thing we talked about credibility is you have to have the courage to make the tough decisions. Because even though you say, oh, well, nobody else sees it, everybody sees it. If you have somebody, a weak link in the chain, everybody sees it. And if you don't, all you're doing is losing credibility. If you do and you act quickly on it, you gain more credibility. And so you have to have credibility as a leader. If you lose credibility, you are not going to be a good leader, no matter how. And once you lose credibility, it's really hard to bring it back. Really hard to bring it back. Last thing is you have to have the ability to build or rebuild a team, right? That is critical. You have to have people surrounding you. You cannot do this yourself. You guys said, oh, I've heard that before or whatever. Guys, it is super, super critical, right? And it also means that you have to recognize the fact that sometimes the team that you've built needs to be rebuilt. And you have to work that fast. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So when we talk about a team, there are 4 characteristics of a well-oiled team. Right? First one is talent. If you don't have talent, it's pretty hard to build a team if you don't have talent. Right? So when you're bringing in the right roles with the right skill sets, etc., got to have that talent. Now, the other thing is you have to have the tenacity to win. You can't just participate. There are no participation trophies in business. You have to have the tenacity to win. And you see this all the time. You see people that have God-given talent, and they don't have the tenacity to win. Give me somebody that has the tenacity to win and not as much talent, I'll take that person over the other person every day in a week, twice on Sunday. Right? They have to have it. You see this in sports all the time. This is another critical one. Mission before self. What does that mean? It's bigger than you. You've got talent, you've got great tenacity to win, but it's not just about you. You see this in sports all the time. Right? You see somebody like Johnny Manziel. Anybody know Johnny Manziel? Anybody heard of Johnny? Johnny Football? Probably the most talented person you've ever seen. And one could question whether he has the tenacity to win or not, but he doesn't give a hoot about the mission. It's all about him. Right? And that's not the kind of player that you want. If you don't have mission before self, the team will break down. Right? And the last thing you need is trust. This is where everybody makes the mistake. They focus on trust first. They say, we're going to build this team. We're going to get trust, and you're going to go in these rooms, and you're going to fall, and people are going to catch you, and all that kind of stuff. Never going to work. Focus on talent, tenacity to win, and mission before self. And when you have that, it builds trust. And the minute that any one of those 3 on the top break down, primarily mission before self, if that breaks down, trust breaks down. Trust breaks down, the whole entire team breaks down. Right? Great example of that, I'll talk about a company that I was in, and I was on the leadership team. We had a phenomenal team. We were all talented. We were all legends in our own mind. We were great. We all had the tenacity to win because we thought, man, this is going to be great. We're all going to make a poop load of money. This is fantastic. We're going to do it. And we all said, man, in order for us to do that, it's got to be bigger than us. And we all had mission before self, and we trusted each other. And we went nuts, and we were doing great. And all of a sudden, it started breaking down. It started breaking down because, number one, we started making a poop load of money. And then all of a sudden, your tenacity to win isn't, oh, man, I got enough money now. I don't know if I need to do that, et cetera. I'm like, okay. And then it was like, well, then mission before self broke down. Then trust broke down. The entire team broke down. All of us left within 18 months. There were 6 of us. We all left, right? Because the whole team broke down. So you have to keep that in mind. Okay. Again, one team, one journey. Right? You have to make sure you understand that as you're going forward. So the other thing you have to do from a leadership perspective and a team perspective, you have to communicate. I can't say that enough. What we do at Swiftpage, and I'll just give you some examples of what I do this thing called Java with John. It's kind of funny, a little bit of name. It's not the Java programming language, but it's coffee, etc. I randomly pick every location, and I visit each location at least every quarter, so I'm on the road a lot. When I'm in a location, I randomly pick 10 people, and I bring them into the office. There's only one rule is you can't have somebody that reports to somebody else, so you don't want to have like a boss and an employee in there. And we just talk for 1 hour. And we have some coffee, and we have some, did you hear that little East Coast thing come out? Coffee, So we have some coffee, and we kind of talk a little bit, And we have one rule that says what happens in Java with John stays in Java with John. They can tell me anything. 99% of the time, I'm just listening. And they tell me, what's working, what's not, et cetera. And you have to have that kind of thing. Now, if you really want to make it really powerful, when you go in there, have those little table tents that has everybody's name and title on it, right? So he's like, John Oechsle, CEO. Yeah, okay. And somebody else is there. And then you say, okay, before we start, we're all going to pick up those things, and we're going to walk over to the trash can, and we're going to throw them in the trash can. Because in Java with John, there's no titles. Right? We're all the same. We're just here to talk, listen, and go through that. So that's really, really critical. We also do monthly and quarterly business reviews. This is so important to make sure that you have the leadership aligned and everybody focused on what's the right thing. We also do all Swifties meetings. Every 6 weeks we do an all Swiftie meetings. Every single location, we all hook up via WebEx or video conferencing, etc. And that's my opportunity to make sure that everybody still understands what's our purpose, vision, and values, what's our strategy, how we're doing, all kinds of stuff. You have to make sure that you do that because when you're going and moving at the pace that we move at, boy, people can get lost really quickly. You have to bring everybody together. We have this really cool thing called the Culture Club. We have a super culture, and it's all based around our living the exclamation. So the Culture Club is a bunch of people that get together and sing Boy George songs. Only people from the 80s know that, right? All the younger kids are like, okay, this guy's whack job. What's going on here? So anyway, the Culture Club is each one of the locations has a club that makes sure that they figure out how do we keep the culture moving and growing at Swiftpage. It's tough when you have multiple locations, etc. You have to make sure that that happens. Have to have an open door policy. Everybody knows that they can come and talk to me any time of any day. And if you send me an email, I guarantee you that you will get an answer back within 24 hours, no matter where I am in the world. Right? So you have to have that kind of an open door policy. You have to commit to engage with people. You cannot sit in your office, whether you're a CEO, whether you're a head of a team, whether you're anybody. You can't just sit. You have to commit to engage with people. If you do that, things will go well. If you don't, things will go bad really, really fast. Okay, so how do you know it's working? All right, so this one, I think you guys, make sure you take a picture of this one. This is going to be good, right? Anyway, starts with engaged employees. If it's working, you have engaged employee. What's an engaged employee? I'll give you an example. You walk into a Starbucks, you pretty much are going to get hit with an engaged employee, right? For whatever reason, they absolutely love what they're doing. I don't know, maybe it's the coffee or whatever, the smell or whatever, but they love it. You walk into an Apple store, they are really fired up, right? You walk into a McDonald's, and you're like, oh my God, they just walk into a morgue, right? So that's how you can tell if it's an engaged employee. You walk into Swiftpage, you see people scooting around on scooters, they're having a good time, they're helping each other out or whatever. You're engaged employees. And what's the difference between a satisfied employee and an engaged employee? A satisfied employee is somebody that's happy. You're not always going to be happy. Even if you're engaged, you're probably not always going to be happy. Engaged employee believes in what you're doing and is with you no matter what. That's an engaged employee. If you have an engaged employee, that leads to customer delight. Not customer satisfaction, customer delight. So let's give a little example of that. If you fly United, you are satisfied if the plane lands, right? And that you didn't get yelled at or get drug off and get 2 teeth knocked out, right? If you fly Singapore Air, you go to the pilot and say, could you please circle the airport 3 or more times because I want to stay on this plane. That's a delighted customer, right? And why? Because their employees are engaged. If you have engaged employees, great products, you're going to have delighted customers. If you do that, you will have profitable growth. It's inevitable. People love it. They were going to say, yes, I want more of that, etc. If you have profitable growth, you're going to create shareholder value. Now, here's the key. If you make your employees shareholders, this whole thing just keeps on going. They become more engaged, and they get more value, more engaged, more value, or whatever. Done this 3 or 4 different companies. It works every time. Right? So you need to make sure that you, as you're looking at that, look at the companies that you're in. Is this happening in my company? Or if I'm starting up a company, this is the way and the foundation that you would put in chairs there. So, okay, lesson 3. How are we doing on time? How many tchotchkes do we have? Lots? All right, let's get rid of some of these. How about in the back row? Who wants one? Here it comes. Oh, she almost picked it off. All right, who wants that one? There we go. Oh, good catch. All right, anything else we have? You know what this is? All right, you look like you could use that one. You don't know what it is, but you're going to have it, right? Okay, lesson 3. You must have the courage and the tenacity to stick it out, right? Lots of tough things are going to happen. So, what is courage? Well, if you think about the Wizard of Oz and the Cowardly Lion, the courage is really about what does, what's it say? The muskrat guard his musk, right? That's what courage is. No, realistically. Courage is not the absence of fear, but it's the recognition that there's something bigger than fear, right? That's courage. Okay? Even though you're going to go into something, you're going to say, man, I'm scared to death. And that's okay. But you're able to come over that. And you say, okay, I have the courage to overcome that fear and still keep on going. Right? That's the kind of courage that we're talking about. So let's talk about some of the courage. We already kind of laid some of this out. But when we went from transformation to conversion, we had to have the courage to completely revamp the team. We had to say goodbye to some really good Swifties, people that were not bad people, but they just weren't going to take us to the next level. Now, the one thing is, once you're a Swiftie, you're always a Swiftie. We help out everybody no matter what. But you have to say goodbye. You have to have that courage. You have to have the courage to say, stop, we're not aligned, this isn't going to work. You have to have the courage to fight off a bank who says, I'm going to come in and call your loan because I think you guys are crazy of what you're doing. And you say, no, we're not crazy. Stay with us. This is what we're going to do. That's the kind of courage that we're talking about. Now, when you get through growth, we have this great team now in the conversion era. Now everybody has to have the courage to grow. Because you know what happens? In the last 15 months, everybody's gotten really complacent. They're like, John, this is great. We know exactly what kind of revenue we're getting every month. We know all this kind of stuff. We're really doing good. And I'm like, yeah, great. We're going to blow it up. And we're going to do something completely different. And they're like, I'm not with you, man. And we're like, well, then you're probably not in the right place, right? Because we're going to grow. Right? See, that's the kind of courage that we have. Now, I love this quote. I'll kind of paraphrase it because it's long, but it's basically, if you want to be an extraordinary person, you actually look at what you think is impossible, you can visualize it, and you make it possible. Right? When we were sitting in a room back in 2012, everybody in the world said, there is no way you're going to be able to buy 2 companies. No way. It's impossible. Number one thing, if you want to get under my skin, tell me something's impossible, because I will die making it possible. Right? That's the kind of stuff that you need to do. That's the kind of courage that you need to have with your team. So think of your teams, think of your companies that you're in, and say, okay, how do I view the impossible, make it possible, and then drive my team to make it happen? Right? That's the kind of courage you need to do. Now, everybody always asks me, what's the characteristics of a Swiftie? We call ourselves Swifties. Did I say that? We're Swiftpage. We're Swifties. We're all part of Swiftpage Nation. Everybody says, hey, John, what's a Swiftie? Okay, pretty simple. 4 characteristics. You got to be fast-paced. You can't be a Swiftie and be slow, right? I mean, that would just be horrible, right? So you got to be fast-paced, and you got to move very, very quickly. You got to be innovative. If you're moving at the pace that you're moving at, not everything is going to be there. Right, so you're going to have to be innovative to figure out how to get past some things that aren't there yet. And you need to be fearless. And this is where everybody says, you mean no fear? No, it means that you have the courage to get over the fear and keep on moving. And you have to be a winner. You have to want to win. Do not come and just participate. That's not what we're looking for. You have to want to win. We do this really cool thing, and I brought this into the company about 2 years ago. It's called the Fearless Challenge. And I stood up in front of all the Swifties, one all Swiftie meeting, and I said, I want you to do something that scares the living hell out of you. I don't care if it's personal, professional, I don't care. And if you do that, you'll become part of the Fearless Club. And then we have this really cool orange fleece that we wear. It says Fearless on the back. Swiftpage is really cool, and then people do that. So And I thought, okay, nobody's going to do this. My God, I had so many emails that come in. Now, some things were like, I'm really afraid of tuna fish. If I eat a tuna fish sandwich, can I get a fleece? I'm like, no, sorry, you're not going to do that. But you have, anything from, people running marathons to climbing mountains. The group in the middle, there's 2 Swifties in there that got up because they were afraid of public speaking and did a open mic comedy night. Are you kidding me? Tell me that's not fearless. That's absolutely crazy, right? So, you have all kinds of things. The one that I don't have a picture of, which is probably the best story that I ever heard. I had this developer, and he was, really, really an introvert. I mean, he would come in every morning, and he wouldn't even make eye contact with anybody. He would just kind of say, good morning, whatever. Go to his desk, work at his desk all day long, come out, go bye, bye, bye. So he comes to me and he says, John, I got a challenge. I said, okay, what is that? He goes, because he rode the train in every day. He goes, for 30 days on the train, I'm going to force myself to meet a new person, and I'm going to get their business card, and at the end of the 30 days, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to tell you something about each one of those 30 people. I said, dear God in heaven, that's fantastic. I never thought in my life he was going to do it. And he did it. And 30 days later, he came back and he sat down and he did it. Now he's part of Toastmasters Club. Now he's out doing speeches. He's helping. He's a mentor kid. It's life-changing, and that's fantastic. That's what this is all about. It's about helping others get better, whether it's helping businesses, fueling small business growth get better, helping employees get better, helping customers get better. That's what this is all about. If you can do that, that is really success. All right, so the Fearless Challenge is pretty cool. Okay, speaking of courage, remember those 2 most important things. Here's the tough part. Take it down to 1. You now have to think about what is the most important thing to you in your life. Students, it's not about how you're going to get beer money for Saturday. It's just not going to happen. That could be the most important thing for your life right now, but it isn't. Now, you guys got it? Now you got to make sure you have the courage, the passion, and the tenacity to follow it. Okay, it's not God's great. Say, oh yeah, I got this thing, it's really cool or whatever. Have the courage to not only just write it down, have the courage to go after it. And don't just go after it and say, oh, I'm going to do it, et cetera, whatever. Have passion. And you know what? If anything that you have passion and you're trying to do, at some point in time it's going to get tough. So you've got to have the tenacity to keep it going and keep going. And I guarantee you, if you follow whatever you have in your mind right now or on a piece of paper, and you say, I've got the courage and the passion and tenacity to follow it, I guarantee you, you'll achieve it. I guarantee it. All right, guys, what do you say we wrap this thing up? Right? I don't know about you, but I'm starving. Right? I don't know. You guys have been listening to my stomach growl in the front row here. That's the passion coming out. All right, so what did we say we were going to do? We said we were going to cover the 3 lessons that we learned on our journey: strategy, leadership, courage. What do you think? Can I put a check on that? Did we cover that? Did you guys take a little nuggets away from that? Good? All right. Did you learn a little bit about yourself? Just a couple seconds ago, you now know the most important thing in your life, and you're going to have the courage and the passion and tenacity to go after it, right? Can we put a check on that one? Yeah? Good? You guys have some fun? Yeah? Can I put a check on that one? You guys want to have a little bit more fun? Just a little bit more? Yeah, you ready? All right. How would you like to be an honorary Swiftie? You want to be that? How would you like to be one of over 300,000 Swifties that are part of Swiftpage Nation in over 100 countries? You guys want to be one of those? Yeah? Got to give me something, man. Come on. Yeah, there we go. All right. Can you be fast-paced, innovative, fearless, and a winner? Yeah, oh, great, great. Okay. Can you be that? All right, here's how it's going to go down. I'm going to say, are you ready? And you're going to say, yeah, but you're not going to say, you're going to say, right? You shake the rafters on this to make sure the whole campus hears you. Right? You got that? Then I'm going to say, Swifties, give me 3. We are Swiftpage. We are Swiftpage. We are Swiftpage. Okay? And again, when you say the Swiftpage, rock the rafters. All right, you with me? You good? All right, are you ready? Yeah! Swifties, give me 3. We are! Swiftpage! We are! Swiftpage! We are! Swiftpage! Welcome to the nation, baby. Miami Steve, if you please. Thank you very much, guys. You've been really, really great. Okay, I think we have some questions. Time for questions? Yes? No? Okay. Yeah. I just came to Penn. Didn't graduate. No, I had to go back and get a. I went back to Rutgers University and got a computer science degree. So just here to play football. Did that, and then went on to Rutgers, and then got my MBA from Dartmouth. But it was a good first step. Other questions? Ooh. Come on, man. Somebody give me a question. Yeah. If you have a if you're a Swiftie, and you say, okay, it's time to move on, you help them by going out. If you have over 300,000 people around the world, you use that network, and you say, hey, I got a Swiftie. It's not making it here. Great person. You know, how can we help out and go from there? We've also had what we call yo-yo Swifties, Swifties that have left and then have come back. You know, those type of things. We help up with mentors. A lot of our Swifties go off and start their own companies. We help them out in that way as well. So once a Swiftie, always a Swiftie. Now that you're honorary Swifties, you got 300,000 people plus on your side right now. So I'll give you a little bag for that. That's a good question. Oh. Yeah.
So where are your locations in America?
So we have, here, that's a good question. So we have 3 locations around the world, headquarters in Denver, Colorado. We have a large operations center in Scottsdale, Arizona, which around this time of the year, it's really nice to go visit. The Swifties see me a lot in that period of time. And then we have another large operations center over in Newcastle, UK, which is up in the northeast, is right below Scotland. We have a development community in Ukraine, and we have a support center over in Chennai, India. Yeah.
I have a question. You know, when you're talking about leadership, it seems like being a visionary is a big part of that, especially when you're dealing with technology and tech companies. I read an article a couple years ago about how when Yahoo purchased Flickr, it basically kind of killed the platform when it had the chance to actually be bigger than Facebook, because it was doing what Facebook eventually started doing. When you're when I was struck by what you're speaking is you seem very confident in terms of where you were going. As part of that leadership, how much, or have you ever had moments of self-doubt, or all right, is this really the direction that the tech world is going, or that we should be going? Do you have to confront that?
Yeah, no, that's a really, really good question. And that's why you need to have people I need to have people in my life that I can, talk to. So number one, I can talk to my wife all the time. And she doesn't always understand everything that I'm going through, but she has this great ability to say, well, that sounds stupid, what are you doing that, or whatever. But number two is, that's where you have people like, I have mentors like Jerry Stead. This is a guy that's been there, done that 1,000 times, or other mentors that you can pick up the phone and you can say, man, I'm feeling kind of weird about this. Am I doing this the right way? And they have to have the ability to say, you should feel weird about it because you're heading down a cliff and it's not going to work. You got to make a detour. Or to say, no, man, hang in there. You're doing the right thing. It's going to feel like this. Get through it. But you have to have that kind of a support system, going forward. I want to go back to your question, because this is your statement about Yahoo and Flickr. This is the issue that happens all the time. Big companies will acquire great small companies and kill them. And you say, why does that happen? Right? Big companies cannot innovate. No matter how hard they try, they cannot. There's this big machine, and it's really hard for them to innovate. So then they look elsewhere for innovation, and most of the time it's companies. And then they don't look at, in order to make a successful acquisition, it's more about culture than it is anything else. I've acquired companies that should just have been fantastic, and it's failed. And you look at it, it's like, why? Well, we hated each other. We absolutely hated it. If you hate each other and you fight with each other every single day in the marketplace, and then you acquire them, it's not going to magically turn over and they're going to like, oh, I love you now because you acquired me. They're going to hate you even more, right? So you have to really take a look at, is there a cultural fit? And if there's not, you really need to walk away. And I've walked away from more acquisitions than I've done, and a lot of it is because it just, it probably would have, made sense. We could have made it work or whatever, but it probably wouldn't have worked. But it's a good question. What else? I got some more tchotchkes here. I got an umbrella. On a great night like tonight. You want the umbrella? Look at that. There you go. Oh, hold that question for a second. We'll get this one over here, okay?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
So, oh, wow, hello. So during your strategic planning, how much was the HR department involved? How much would you say you actually partnered with the HR department?
Yeah, no, so that's a really good question. So my leadership team, what's on my leadership team, and who are the players that sit around my table all the time? You've got my chief financial officer, you've got my chief legal officer, you've got my chief operating officer, and you've got my chief human resource officer. You've got to have all those components in there. And if that's one of the other things that we tend to miss sometimes. You're like, oh man, this is going to be great. Everybody's going to love it. Right? And then you go out and it's like, oh man, it was a flop. And the reason being is because you didn't have HR and you didn't have the people component at the table when you were talking about it. So if it's not at the table, it's not going to work. It has to be at the table.
I know that this is a rather big question for a short answer, but as the man in the corner office, as the person in the corner office, what do you do? What are your strategies for mentoring and developing the leaders around you so that they can do their own part to build the strategy and lead in growth?
Yeah, so one of the things that we do, and I myself and the rest of my leadership team, if 50% of your time is not growing the next generation leadership, you're not doing the right things. Right? So over 50% of my time is doing just that. Right? It's looking at working one-on-one with my leaders. It's understanding what their strengths are, what their development areas are, helping them through that. It's helping them with assignments. It's listening a lot of times. We do a meeting twice a year. It's called talent scoping, where we get together with the senior leadership team and we review every single Swiftie. And we don't just look at them like, okay, what's your performance review or whatever. We're like, look at them and say, okay, what are they doing? Do we have them in the right position? Do they have the ability to grow? Do they want to grow? And what can we do? What kind of assignments can we move people around on? And so if you take a look at the next layer down below the senior leadership team, every single one of those people have come up through the ranks, right? And we've given them the opportunity to win. Now, I will tell you that sometimes we fail, right? And I talked about earlier, oh man, this person would be great at that. And we talk and they're like, yeah. And the first question they'll ask is, how much am I going to get paid? And you're like, yeah, well, you're going to make a big raise. Great, I want it. Boom, and then it fails, right? And that's our problem. So it was a long-winded answer, but over 50% of my time is spent growing the next generation leadership. Okay, what do we have? Time for one more? It's got to be a good one because we have an awesome, awesome sweatshirt. Ooh, to the mayor. Ooh.
Looking forward, part of strategizing is anticipating where the market's going to go in the next few years.
Yeah.
So what kind of changes would you anticipate with your product, technology and in concept, over the next few years?
Oh, man. You deserve the sweatshirt on this one. All right. Okay, so what time is it right now? 7:20? We're going to be here till 9 o'clock at night on this one. This is a fantastic one. So we are entering in probably the most fun time of the software industry, and particularly in the CRM industry, right? So what are the 3 most connected devices that you have in your life today? Obviously, number 1 is your phone, right? What's number 2? Television. Television/house, right? Because now the television is now connecting, the whole house is being connected. What's the 3rd one? Car. Your car, right? That's the most connected thing. So now, where is this all going? no matter where you go, you want to be able to interact with your software, whether you're on your phone, your car, in your house, or whatever. You don't want to be sitting in front of a keyboard, right? We have multiple generations that are out in the marketplace. You got the old guys like me, what do we call it, the baby boomers. Then you have the Gen X's, the Gen Y's, the millennials. You have a Gen Z. I don't know if anybody's heard of Gen Z. Gen Z, some of you folks are into Gen Z that are in the room right now. Youngest are in middle school, and the oldest are just entering in the workforce. They've grown up with a completely different thought process on how to interact with software. And they're coming into the marketplace. If you're not out in front of that, they will throw your product down the toilet and you will fail really, really fast, right? They're into, what are you talking about, a computer? I don't know what a computer is. I got a phone, I got a tablet, I can talk to my television, I can talk to my remote on my TV. You're starting to see that. So that's where all this is going. So with CRM, you talk about the CRM industry, nobody wants this big monolithic application anymore. Right? Nobody wants to say, oh my God, okay, I want to get into it. Let me pull all the application up. Let me go to 17 screens to figure out where I want to go to. They want a little snippet on a phone, or they want to be in their car, and they want to interact with the software. They want all that software running in the background somewhere. They don't even care. They don't ever want to see it. They only need to know about what are these 3 or 4 things that they want to do, and that's all they want to interact with on their phone and their car. Right? If you think about a salesperson, CRM is all about sales, helping grow sales. I'm in a car. I should be able to say, hey, act. How did my marketing campaign go? What should I be doing? Right? So it's that kind of interaction. Now, what I just said, that last sentence, what should I be doing? Where this is going, the software works for you. You don't work for the software. Right? So right now, a lot of software is out there. You have to work for that software. You have to get in front of the keyboard. You got to put all this stuff in. Everybody says, oh yeah, garbage in, garbage out, all that kind of stuff. Nobody wants to do that anymore, right? They want to have the software connected. We talked about the connected workplace. You have all these different applications running. All that information's got to come in. Once it's in there, the software should tell you what to do, particularly if you're a small business. If you're an enterprise software, you're going to hire data scientists, and you're going to have big data, and you're going to be able to afford that. If you're a 15-person company, you don't have a data scientist on there. You don't even have an IT person on there. You may not even have a sales and marketing team. You're doing it all yourself. And you need the software to tell you what you need to do next. That's exciting, right? That's sweatshirt material right there, right? All right, guys. Hey, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me back, guys.